Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Buenas, this is Francisco Gallardo with the Healing Generations podcast, the Elder edition, brought to you by the Healing Generation Institute, which comprises of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. I want to welcome everyone again. It's been a minute, but we're back to 2026, looking for a good new year. You know, a lot of stuff are happening. You know, a lot of beautiful stuff, a lot of painful stuff in our community. And it saddens me in a lot of ways. You know, we talk about healing, but really it takes us all to hold up our community in a good way, you know, to bring everyone together and support one another, especially during this hard time. So before I get going, I want to call in and ask permission from the four directions as we do. So I want you to close your eyes, maybe take a deep breath. I want you to, in your mind, think of you facing that east direction. We're calling all the men in your life. You know, your grandfather, your father, your uncles, your hood uncles, your tios, you know, all of them. We want to bring in your homies, your sons, your nephews, your godsons. Bring them all. The homies in the community. We want all the energy of the men, you know, all the beautiful parts of men, all the beautiful, you know, ways that we conduct ourselves with strength and all these things that we want. But also we want to recognize, you know, the nurturing ones, the ones that help in the community, help guide us, help lead us in a good way. And then we turn around as we pivot and go to that west direction. We think of all our LGBTQ relatives. We want to think about them and their life, the things that they're facing. Right now, in particular, our young people need us. Our community need us. They need us to stand with them and protect them in a good way. And we want to honor all the blessings and the beauty that they bring to us, to our community. And as we face that west direction, we think of all the women in our lives, our grandmothers, our mothers. We want to acknowledge all the pain and struggle that they went through and the beauty and the nurturing ways of our women. We want to think of our daughters, our goddaughters. We want to think about our tias and our hood tias. We want to think about our co-workers, all the women in our lives. We want to think about them in a good way because we need them. We need to honor them in a good way. As we turn around again to that north direction, we think of all our elders, all the elders in our lives. You know, our ancestors, the ones that lived before us, they didn't even know our name, but they were trying to make it a little bit easier for us. And we have to do the same. We have to do that. We have to try to make things easier for our relatives in that way. But we also want to think about our elders, you know, our spiritual elders, our organizing elders. All of our elders have value. You know, sometimes they're lonely, you know, reach out. If you have a grandparent or parents, you know, or a tia that kind of lives by herself, bring her some tacos, you know, say hi, acknowledge them. So with that, we want to turn again the spectrum from the very oldest to the very youngest. As we turn around to our left, we head to that south direction and we think of all the children, all the babies that are coming into this world. We want to think about the little babies, the toddlers, the elementary school, the middle school, the high school, all the way into college. What the youth represent is that hope in our communities, that somehow, some way that they're going to get it right. And all the pain and trauma that we bring, that they break that cycle. So we want that for our kids. We want them to be cycle breakers. We want them to have self-determination for each and every one of us and for themselves. That determination to have a better life. I also support other people in our communities, even if we don't know them, somehow, some way, give them a little love if you can, And of course, you got to love yourself. And then we turn around and we put our hands in the air and we think of Tonantiu, the sun, and all the beauty that the sun is. And the sun also represents hope. Every morning that sun comes back up as we go around. That sun reminds us it's a new day. Whatever happened yesterday, we can't change that. All we could do is move forward in a beautiful way. So we want to recognize that sun. And right now we're in the wintertime. So the sun is not around that much, but it's still here. And then as we touch that ground, we think of Tonantzin and all the representations of Tonantzin, of Mother Earth. Just how beautiful Mother Earth is. It can be very harsh and it can be very beautiful at the same time. So we want to recognize that. We want to recognize the beauty. And I want you to think of something during this time, we talk about the earth. Some say they find solitude, beauty in the mountains, but they forget the mountains once came together very violently and pushed up and created that beauty. It took time, but eventually it settled down and we could see the blessing. So sometimes your life might be hard right now, but there's a blessing in there. Believe it. And with that, we want to put our hands in the middle and think of creation. Whatever you believe, I'm not telling you what to believe, but even if you don't believe in anything, any kind of creator, just believe in life, the beauty of life, that we could, walk around, we could have a job, we could do all these beautiful things, have a family, and just with that very basic understanding, just be grateful, have gratitude. Take one more deep breath. All right. I just want to thank everyone for your patience. When we do that, it's very important that we take a little time and recognize those 4 directions and remind ourselves what's important in life. So it's very important. As we move on, we have kind of a big announcement, I think. So we're bringing on a new host with me, which is good. Probably get tired of hearing me and stuff, but it's really important that we build with each other. It's not about one person. It's about a team. It's about an effort. And I want to acknowledge my new co-host, Michelle. I'll let her introduce herself briefly, and then we'll introduce our guests.
Hello, everyone. Buenas. My full name is Michelle Escarlet Gonzalez Plazola, and I work very closely with Cisco. I am one of the program coordinators here at the National Compadres Network, and I support the Healing Generations Institute along with our family and education initiatives. And so usually I take care of all of the magic, the logistics that happen behind the scenes, including with this podcast. I am what Cisco calls one of the producers. And excited and a little nervous to be on this side of the stage, I guess. And hearing my voice, I don't know what that will be like later on. But we're on this journey together, and really looking forward to this podcast with our brother Ezell. And so I'll pass the palabra to Cisco to an introduction.
All right. Thank you so much, Michelle. So, I want to introduce Ezell. We met him a few years back. Well, actually, it's been a little over a year, maybe a little bit more, but he was a part of a fellowship that we did here at the National Compadres Network in conjunction with Kaiser and Hope and Hill. And it was for CVI workers in particular, those that work in community violence, intervention, even prevention a little bit. But I've come to have a lot of respect for Ezell, for the work he's doing, and for the resiliency that he showed, not only his family, his kids, but to his community. It doesn't mean that you could do things in your life, and if you want a better life, you could change. And I know that's hard for people. They said, no, you don't understand my life, bro. I've seen it many times. And it just takes that first step, So with that, I'm going to allow Brother Ezell to introduce himself, where he's from, his organization. Thank you so much, Ezell.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Ezell Humphrey-Grant. I'm based in Sacramento, California. I'm work with a gun violence reduction community-based organization called Movement for Life Sacramento. And our aim is to reduce gun violence and promote mentorship and community outreach and help within the Sacramento area. I'm the program manager, and I'm also a member and founder of the Reestablishment, which is a Del Paso Heights community outreach organization that we're just trying to do outreach in the neighborhood. But that's a little bit about me and who I work for.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, in the guise of that, I want you to expand a little bit. Who are your people? Who are your roots? And what's the path that brought you here? You don't have to go much into detail, but tell us a little bit about who you are.
So who I am, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a community advocate, mentor, come from struggle. I come from a background of the negative side of life, gang life and gang culture as a youth. And growing up, I had to come to the realization of what I wanted for myself, for my family as I started having children. I am now a proud father, grandfather, community member, stakeholder, and supporter of everything positive in my community, and someone that's trying to clean up the mess that I was part of creating in my city as a youth, being that this episode, as it says, the Yelders, that space in between, coming to the realization, I'm 50 plus years old. It's kind of, you got to really look back. It's a blessing to have made it to where I am, just in age and the diversity and everything going on. But to be able to come back and then help people deal with some things that I dealt with as a youth myself, and having the resources and the knowledge and just the motivation to even be, somebody that wants to create change and be a part of change and healing. Del Paso Heights, Sacramento, California. It's very little being offered, and historically there was very little being offered in a lot of cities, inner cities. And what we're dealing with now, it's an abundance of people willing to help and heal. And so I'm part of that now. It's a blessing and it's beautiful. And along with National Compadres Network and everyone that I met through there, and Hope and Heal and Strengthening Hearts, it's a blessing. And where I was and where I'm at now is such a 180 that I'm grateful for, and just happy to be a part of this journey with everyone that's on this train with me.
Thank you for sharing that, Ezell, and telling us a little bit about your journey, and the mission that you're on now. What I'm curious to know more, you mentioned, that you're on this healing journey. So could you tell us maybe a little bit more about your family or any cultural values or practices within that have guided you towards this healing journey that you say you're on now? So even this could include like music, ceremonies, storytelling, any moments of struggle and resilience, just some examples.
Yes. I have a significant one that I would like to bring light to, because through everything, it wasn't until, and this is just straight up, it wasn't until I came down to Whittier and did the circle with you all that I really looked inside more towards what healing was for myself. Before that, prior to that, with family and community, the support has always been there, the motivation, encouragement from family, the gatherings we would have. our reunions. It's unfortunate a lot of times over history, the recent history, a lot of our healing came when we were dealing with losing people. So it was like we wouldn't come together, my family and the people that I'm close with and grew up with in my actual physical community. It come to a point to where funerals and when we're losing people and doing vigils, we were coming together and trying to deal with it that way. You know how you just come, you share stories and you have healing. It had seemed that things had been reduced to that. And when I came to the circle in Whittier with National Compadres and the Strengthening Hearts Coalition, we had the medicine burning and we had the stories and we had the sharing to where I had to look inside and open up even deeper beyond the surface level of what I was doing for my healing already. You know, I would isolate, I would meditate, but it really brought into perspective how to do this, to ground myself, because I'm also Native American Miwok, and I'm registered with the Calaveras Valley Miwok tribe. My family in the tribe, they have good healing and good,
Yeah.
powwows and all kinds of stuff going on. The real, sessions, sweats and everything,
Mm-hmm.
which I look to get more into, but
Mm-hmm.
where I came from in the inner city, I wasn't familiar with that. So coming to do circle with National Compadres Network and all the fellows, the men and women in that in Whittier, it brought that more into my wanting and what I do for myself daily now. And I try to reach out to my community and family and share everything I've been learning and picking up on the way to help them to also deal with their struggles and to heal from the traumas that we are dealing with. So much trauma and loss going on in the communities now. So that's what I do. I meditate a lot. I take isolation time to myself. I help. I reach out. Reaching out is also part of my healing. Trying to share, practices with people and patience. Just having even more patience than I did before. Always practicing consideration and empathy for others, and that helps me to be more receptive and heal.
Thank you, Ezell, for that. Just sharing a little bit about how you're utilizing the teachings. The Strengthening Heart Fellowship was really important, I thought, in a lot of ways. I want us to continue that work, and I'm so happy that you were in it. We just did a training in Oakland last week, and the training that we did in Oakland, there were some people from SAC there. And, they were also talking about how they want to bring more healing work to SAC in different ways, And I know there's a lot of people, but what Amaya was talking about from SAC, she was talking about how we bring the community together and really have these discussions. In Spanish, we call them pláticas. Some people talk to the community, and I feel like sometimes they're like throwing a rock in a well. You know what I mean? We have to really get individuals, right, to recognize their own pain, just like what you talked about. One thing I admire about you is that was your ability, even in those meetings, to be authentic, to talk about not only what you've been through, but the struggles of what you're going through right now. As a father, as an intervention worker in the community, I really admire that about you. Even the homeboy you brought to the training that we did in SAC, back in December, that was beautiful, to see you guys interact and talk to people. But in carrying those teachings, how do you share your teachings that you're learning about your own resiliency, about your own healing? How do you share those with your kids and the community? How have you been doing that? And what things would you suggest for other people that's in the same situation?
First, I try my best to lead by example. The teachings that I've had, and the trainings that I've had, like the one in December, I brought my brother Ramiro. He loved it. First of all, he loved you. He was like, "Oh man, Ezell, thank you for inviting me and bringing me there." Like he's a brother that I shared a lot with. I grew up with. I've known, and he's been wanting to get into this work. And what I do is I give them a breakdown, like what I've been through. Let them be able to understand from their perspective, like to be able to equate it with things that they might be going through, whether it's my children, youth in the community, even parents in the communities, because I span all the different ages. I've been there. I'm the parent, I'm the grandparent now. I am the mentor, though I'm the program manager, but I'm a mentor still to my community and members, youth in the community. And with the work, we do it in life skills classes. We hold life skills classes Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday in different areas of Sacramento. And we have chances to share with them different trainings and things we learn. And even with my kids at home, I take the time to sit them down and literally share, like even just the meaning of palabra and ashe, and how to ground and how to meditate. I burn the sage with them and a San Paulo, and just ground and kind of try to reach back to the elders and the ancestors and get them to like believe, the truth. Without the faith, you don't have nothing. You got to believe in something, but without the work, nothing will work. So you have to put the work in, you have to believe, you have to really reach out and have confidence in what you're doing, and be empathetic and honest and a good person, and just stay grounded in that and keep your moral compass straight. And I try to exemplify that. I'm not perfect. I don't think I know anybody that is, but every day I'm working towards trying to be a better me and a better friend, father, community member, husband, brother, and kind of push them to want to do the same, whether it's in my house, in the community, the youth in the community, like I said, and even parents that might need a little help sometimes and words of encouragement.
I appreciate that. I was in a meeting yesterday, and in this meeting I really appreciate it because they're organizers from all over the state. Most of them are in the Bay Area, but they brought up in their prompts for our meeting, they had several questions. One was, tell me a story about hope. And people struggled with that, right? Talking about hope, they're like, I don't know, hope's difficult, And I brought up this piece where Father G from Homeboy Industries, he says, one of his famous quotes is, our kids suffer from a lethal dose of hopelessness, right? And I believe in that because the one thing I remember when I was going through my things, it's really struggling, not just as a young man, but even as a man, my health or different things, struggling to find hope in my future, and hope was hard, but even as a kid, once I found hope, my first kind of real hope was I found the struggle of my people. I realized as a young man, I wasn't the only kid in gangs. There was kids in every major city, every little town. It didn't matter that we held up, that me included, we held up that life as something to be proud of. And it's something I aspired to, but I didn't think I could change. Losing friends, losing people to prison, to death, having to move away. One thing I realized is that I have the power to change my own life. I have that hope. It's a beautiful thing, when you realize, and I see that in you, I see that hope. And a lot of what you talk about is your own redemption, but even the things that you've done in your life to this point, I feel like is a big accomplishment, and different ways to share your story is important because it is one of those things that help people. Because if they think in their mind, hey, if Ezell could do it, I could do it. You know what I mean? And that's important. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Michelle. Thank you again. I really appreciate your answers and your candidness about your life.
And having adults like you as a youth is super, super important because it, like Cisco mentioned, right, it gives you that hope where kids can relate to your stories when you keep it so raw and honest with them and so candid. Even parents too, right, that they can relate to the struggles that you faced when you were younger and they see how you overcome them and where you're at now. It definitely creates a sense of hope. It reminds me a lot. I used to be an educator and I worked with middle school students for a pretty long time and with their parents as well. I had a really close relationship. And when I came to some of the first trainings with NCN, it made a difference. The skills that I learned with NCN when I applied them and how I was supporting them and carrying forward those teachings. So thank you for sharing that. That it reminded me of that and how much throughout that process, I also learned a lot about myself. And so my question to you is, what have you discovered about yourself throughout your healing process that you didn't realize before?
I would say right off the bat that it's crazy because it's two sides to a coin, that I'm stronger than I thought I was, right? You gotta be strong going through a lot of the things that we dealt with. We always said, stay strong, man, be strong. That's kind of like a mantra for people. And you say it, but not always do you believe it. Sometimes people have to put on that I'm strong or I'm tough, especially in the culture that I grew up in, a lot of us grew up in. It was about always being tough. So it was assumed that, you live in this life, these are some tough guys, right? But the reality is a lot of people were scared. A lot of people were dealing with stuff. They were forced to be that way. And so not to say that they weren't, and I wasn't, because I held this, I felt that way, but in reality, it wasn't strength. It was really inconsideration because it was a false sense of strength, because just because you were willing, that's like the youth nowadays, like the mind frame has switched. Like people don't even fight no more. They're up a stick. They ready to everybody shooting and all this stuff. And we know that's not strength. We're talking about go back to, fighting and stuff like that. But everybody, so much debts because all this killing and stuff. And they started to look at that as the strength. Like if I could do this, this, and this, and they upped it more and more, like that was the strength. When in reality, that was fear. That was how they always say you back someone into a corner, what they got to do, to get out of that corner. That's the type of strength. That's not real strength. I noticed I was stronger than I was when I had to deal with things that I didn't really have control of. And I had to ground myself and be at peace with doing the work that was really necessary to put myself and my family in a situation and the positions like that I'm in now. It took real strength, like being able to fight back temptations to do the wrong thing, being able to stay supportive of other people, being able to be there for your family and friends in times of need, even when you're a person that's in time of need. And just realizing that was something that I could do that I didn't know, and letting go of all the false strengths, the homeboys being, the people that supported you, that you felt the culture, that type of the negative culture. Like the real ones, of course, your family, the people that really support you, that's gonna be there. And that is the strength. But you having the strength yourself to be there for yourself, to show up for yourself, to believe in yourself. People don't speak about that enough, or to feel it, enough. Like to believe in yourself is like, and really push yourself through things is a much needed and important strength. Weakness, things what I struggle with was, like I said, the flip side of that coin was how soft I really was in the midst of everything.
Yes.
So many men, we try to be so strong and strength and all that. They never know it's a balance. We're our mothers and our fathers, and when you realize that emotional side of you, it only comes out when you actually have to consider people.
Yeah.
So when you're going through that strength, really trying to find strength, and you're taking that consideration and empathy, it challenges you to understand and to feel that you got to be weak sometimes too. You got to
Yes.
be vulnerable. You got to be open to change. You got to be open to suggestion and even open to other people's realities and truths, and not always just stay in your own truths. So to be considerate and empathetic, and that was something that I had to learn. I was weak in that, and still to this day, as you guys have seen before, tears flow sometimes when we,
Yeah.
especially in the circle, we get to going and you can't hold them back. And it's like I used to be like, men don't shed tears like that, especially in front of other people. You know, take that ride, go to the cemetery, visit your lost people, like do it then. But that also built up too much
Mm-hmm.
negative pressure, you know, to where I had to feel like that. My strength is being able to be weak, you know, at times. And my weakness is just that I'm really affected by things at times. I really care, you know, and I can't really even say that's a weakness, but that's what I found, that the things that I struggle with sometimes is caring so much and then having to scale it back even sometimes, because sometimes you will want more for somebody than they want for themselves, and I'm trying to give it to you, and I'm trying to, you know, be consistent, and I'm going to stay there, but then you still have to be like, okay, they're not ready sometimes, and get
Yeah.
people their space. So I would say that's a weakness of mine.
So tell me a little bit about your organizations. What strategies do you use to change things in the community, and how has like doing healing work changed the way you strategize? You know, because a lot of people, there's a lot of communities out here right now. A lot of times I get emails from people trying to figure out. I have all these young people in my community. They're involved in something, but they don't even know where to start. You know, they don't even know how to organize or nothing. And based on your experience, what are some things that people can do? And also, people that have been formerly incarcerated, sometimes they feel they have to redeem themselves, but they're not sure how to start, you know? Like for me, I didn't choose this work. This work chose me. You know what I mean? It pretty much put me smack dab in the middle. It didn't give me the opportunity to say I wasn't ready. You know, my community basically told me, no, you're ready. You know, they would not let me fall. And I still, to this day, boggles my mind how these elders, these organizers in my community never gave up on me, and I gave them many reasons to. I really did, and they're just like, no, not today.
Mhm.
And I know some of my homies that they were also getting that love, but they resisted it. You know, they resisted it, and some of them lost their lives. Some of them, I mean, they're not in prison now. Some of them, but they're just, you know, sometimes when I see them, they don't seem happy. You know, they don't seem fulfilled, and I don't know what that is, but I still, when I see them, I try to love up on them, you know, the best I can, you know, encourage them, say good things to them. Not that I'm better than them. I'm just right now in a better place, you know, and I have to help them acknowledge that. Sometimes they think it's a miracle that will happen, that you have to give up all this to have a better life, you know, and it's not that way. So based on your experience, what are some things that you guys do to reach out into the community?
With Movement for Life and Beautiful Evolutions, which is another organization that I also work with Movement for Life. It's our in custody piece, where we go inside the juvenile halls, youth detention facilities, and do life skills classes and trainings with incarcerated youth. So that's one way. Even family members of people who are incarcerated, youth and stuff, one way they could help them and to reach out to them is actually go, you know, get on that visiting list, take them some encouraging booklets or, you know, teachings, go visit them, talk to them, and get them while they're incarcerated, like when they're at their weakest point, and where, you know, because that's where a lot of stuff happens, like you said. For formerly being a formerly incarcerated person, I know how much incarceration shaped me and what was available and how impressionable I was through my juvenile teenage years, that if the people coming with the right information at the right time, like when you need that and nobody else is there for you, that's big. So as family members, you can reach out to your people that are incarcerated instead of shutting them down and being like, no, they messing up. Accept a call here or there, visit, go see them, send them some encouraging work, booklets or anything. And that's what we do. Also, what we do community-wise, right now we have open hood surgery, right? We're doing the series called Open Hood Surgery, where it's a collection of community members, parents involved in the program, and parents and grandparents of community members that have say so and want to like help and be a part of the positive change in the communities. There was one held last week in South Sacramento for our youth and communities and families, parents and people who are just interested in trying to help to find an avenue for these youth and to help to bring down some of the issues in their neighborhoods. We're having another one January 29th for the Oak Park community, which is Midtown, Central Sacramento, where there's a lot of stuff going on. It's another open hood surgery series to bring to the Oak Park community members and parents involved, like bring them a place to meet, to bring some of the things that they're dealing with and the questions that they have to a panel and to each other. And we have a future date set aside for Del Paso Heights. And we, through life skills classes weekly, inviting family to our life skills classes and reaching out to the schools, pulling up at different high schools. And we have the continuation schools, the adult schools stuff. We just try to support each community that we're servicing by being available to them and with the trainings that we've been given and we have, and even being available to participate in the trainings and the sessions that they're holding to bring the information we have. Just reaching out and reaching back from young to old, from elementary school students to church pastors and deacons,
I appreciate that, man. That's a lot of times, especially when you work with kids that are incarcerated, either in, a detention center where they're prejudicated. I always feel like that one's the one where they're quite not really grasping what could happen in their life. Sometimes they're showing out for the homies in there. They got to put that mask on, right? The facade that they're tough. They got to do that. And, I did that. I think everybody does, and not just men, but young women too that are incarcerated. They have to put on that mask, So I appreciate that and sharing a little bit about the work that you do, because I think that's important as a part of your healing. I'm going to pass it back to Michelle.
Yes, and that's really beautiful work that you're doing in your community. Curious as to what was that aha moment in your life, where you decided to steer into this direction that you're in now?
There was an instance where I was already like majorly involved with the youth, as in sports and stuff like that. My first set of kids, because I have a lot of kids, different ages, but I have an older set of kids that are graduated and everything, 6 kids that have already been through high school and everything. And when they were younger, I was heavy into coaching football and basketball and helping with anything team dad type stuff. And I was reaching out and trying to be that role model like that. And one of my son's friends was murdered. And it was a day that they had a football game. And the kids left. We didn't know what the kids, it's all kind of stories of what they did when they left. But one of them ended up getting murdered. And my son is usually with these kids all the time. And I got word that something had happened. This child had been shot and their car had been shot up. And it was like, when I heard the name of who it was, I instantly called my son. Couldn't get through to him. But he called me back like 10 minutes later, like, no, but I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, like, because I can't find my son, and I'm hearing the people that they're with, this happened. Their car got shot up and someone's dead and injuries and this, and I'm just going crazy in my mind. And my son, when he called me, he was like, no, he wasn't with them, and he's trying to find stuff out now. That's why I couldn't answer. And I was just like lost. And so much stuff had came from that. It had got a lot of attention from the media, all kind of stuff. Like initiative in Sacramento changed after that. Like people in position, like a lot of people shifted and moved around and actually went into the work right around that time due to what was going on with the youth. And me, myself, like I said, I was already working with them with coaching and stuff, but it was like, I need to be more of a direct influence to my children and their immediate friends. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I was there for them, but it was like, I need to do something like really specific and bring. So I tried to bring my community together myself with, like I spoke earlier, I had started, it was just an outreach group on social media called the Reestablishment
Mm-hmm.
for my community. And I reached out to people like, hey, so much is going on. What are we going to do? Let's come together as a community and talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Like have open conversations about what we can do to provide for these kids, bring these safe spaces back and stuff. And that just made me like open my eyes to it all. Like you got to be more serious. And this was before I even joined any organization or anything. I was really like, I had my mindset, especially now I had the three younger boys coming up. It was like, I have to do something. I have to be like in a leading role, like step out there and put myself out there with my story and like, I got to change my life too, because I was still, even at the time, I was straddling the fence as far as getting away from the hustling culture. The
Yeah.
gangs and stuff had already been left behind, but I was still involved lightweight in some of the street, not no illicit drug dealing or nothing like that. But, I would go down and gamble at casinos, and I would do things like I would buy stuff to sell, in the community, extra little money to get. And I'm like, I can't do none of this stuff. I really
Mm-hmm.
got to try to legitimize, because the example has to be shown. Anything you asking somebody else to do, you have to be able to say, I'm not just telling you or asking you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And so that was the aha moment, was when my son's close friend was murdered, and I was put in a position to really, it was like, what if, that my child could have been with them, but what are you doing to actually, like, yeah, we know you love your kids. We know you care. We know you, all this stuff, but what are you doing to where they know it and the community knows it? And I just went out, literally, I went, printed up some flyers. I don't know how many flyers, it's like 300 flyers, and went around my community in the middle of the night. I started probably like 11 at night, and I went through neighborhoods that people didn't even dare go in. Like, and I'm all through by myself, just going light posters, stapling up, asking for a community meeting. Everybody, have my phone number. This is where it's going to be at on this date. This is my phone number. Anybody interested in trying to do something for the community and bringing us back, to where how it was, as far as the love that I felt growing up, and actually the nonviolent movement that was going on as I was growing up. How can we bring that back? And I went all through northern Sacramento just posting them up. And I said that from there on, I have to actively be somebody that is participating in the rebuilding of my city, my community.
I really appreciate that, because you recognize your kids need you. You recognize not just your kids, but your kids' friends need you. And I always felt that. My mom was like that. She would tell me, and because I always wanted to be somewhere, my mom would tell me, just bring your friends to the house. You don't have to go hang out over there. Go ahead, hang out right here. And I really appreciate that about my mom, because my homies knew at least my house was a safe place. If we didn't have nowhere else to go, we could always go to my house, hang out in the yard, and listen to music or do whatever we were doing. Sometimes fixing our lowrider bikes or or, just doing whatever. And I really appreciate that, because I always used to tell kids in my program, hey, if you don't feel comfortable, being alone here, bring your friend with you. The only thing I ask is if you bring somebody, they participate. If you both participate, that's it. Just come in. You know what I mean? I don't care if you got 5 friends, bring them all. That's the kind of person I was, because I was one of those guys where I always had really close friends. Always. I even know people, even from I went to kindergarten with, my first best friend, the Torres brothers, and we're little traviesos, little brats doing all kinds of crazy things. But I appreciate that. I really do. And this next question is like somebody out there right now is starting out. They're in a situation, in their heart, they want to do good. They really do. But they're in a situation where they're not sure. Because, people don't want to, I thought about this. There's this pressure to be a dropout, like, oh, if you're a dropout, you're a leva, this and that. But the way I looked at it is, my friends, I never told them, hey, I'm doing this. I just kind of slowly backed away, got more into things, and they never really sweat me because they had love for me. You know what I mean? And we just had an understanding that I'm going to do this in a good way. And back in my days too, there was a sense of unity based on the movement, the Chicano movement. So I was doing that, fighting different political movements like police brutality, standing up for kids' rights, even though I was young. And, I got a lot of good positive feedback for that. And that really changed my life. But if you had to speak to someone that's just starting out, what would you tell them that you think they would want to hear from your heart? What would you tell them?
First of all, I would tell them, don't be discouraged. There will be adversity, but it will be worth it. The belief in self and the freedom that you're going to get with knowing yourself and understanding that it'll all be worth it. You will encounter some difficulty, obstacle here and there, but ultimately for me, it is worth it to see your family proud of you. It's a lot of people coming from where we come from and the backgrounds. A lot of our families never seen us do nothing good. People were so busy, trying to be this certain way that it was like, they never got no congratulations or no pat on their back. Their family never encouraged them. They never seen it. Don't let that discourage you. What you believe in and what you want for yourself and your family, your community, and their future, have the strength to just go ahead and deal with it, whatever diversity may come, because the reward is abundant. It's a blessing, and it's very much worth it.
Really appreciate that too, Ezell, about being honest and straightforward about it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. Ezell, if people wanted to get involved in your work, what should they do? Where should they reach out?
As far as getting involved in the work, as a community member, as somebody that's interested in supporting, you could reach out to myself or Julius or Kenneth Andrews for Movement for Life. We have a website, movementforlife.org also. And that's just for Movement for Life. But we partner with Sierra Health Foundation and Cal Wellness and the Growth Center. We have different partners that we work with to reach out to any one of them for your specific need, anything that you may be interested in, because there's so many different facets of this CVI and this healing and this community outreach work. Depending on what a person is interested in, you can be directed through Movement for Life, Ezell Humphrey-Grant, Kenneth Andrews, or Julius Thibodeau to reach out to anybody for any type of services or help or even support you may want, or getting involved, like being a part of an organization, even because organizations are hiring. There's a lot of hiring going on. And if you have the skills, that are needed, and you have the want, because sometimes actually wanting to help and be a part of it is a bigger part than the skills, because you don't want to be just qualified to do something but not having the actual want to be of service to people. Make sure they have the want, the drive, the determination to actually, be a part of something that's healing the community, and just be prepared to deal with a little diversity and figuring it out, because every day is different,
Mm-hmm.
coming along with this work, and just be prepared to learn, willing to learn, and give yourself to opportunity, and reach out to one of us through Movement for Life or Sierra Health Foundation, and even anybody up your way, of course, National Compadres Network. Just reach out to somebody and show your interest, let them know, and tell them what you want to be a part of and want to do, and see what you can do, what's available.
I appreciate that. A lot of people in their lives, they're like, I want to do something. They're just not sure how. So if you're in the SAC area, please reach out to movementforlife.org, and support any way you can. Even if you don't have the time, maybe you have some money. Even if you don't have money, you can be a cheerleader in the community, right? And get other people to support. Sometimes it's just letting people know, there's people in the community that I think the strongest network of outreach is just neighbors, communities, families. That's important. And we need to build our networks for our youth, not these formal ones or just based on a nonprofit, but based on your heart. Have a little network for yourself and for your kids and for your family. It takes a little while, but be open to it. There's a lot of different trainings out there. And again, if you need support in general, again, you could always go to the National Compadres Network.org. But I want to thank you, Ezell. I don't want to take too much of your time. I appreciate you so much. And I'm going to give you guys a chance to say your goodbyes and whatever last message you have for our audience. Thank you again.
Yes, in that same spirit, I also want to thank you, Ezell, for your, the strength and compassion, in tears and in the tenderness, particularly you as a man, right? That's really important for our audience to hear, I would say, and for that reminder for us as well. So thank you for your time today.
Is there any last words you want to say, Ezell?
Yes, I would like to thank you, Cisco, brother, you, Sister Michelle. Like I said before, man, you guys have been a big part of my healing and transformation, and I'm grateful to you and appreciative to you and National Compadres Network, big time. And I just thank you for everything, the opportunities, and to the people out there, don't give up on yourself. If your heart is in it, man, follow your heart with whatever it may be. The struggle's gonna be there, but don't never be discouraged. Keep the strength and the faith in yourself, and reach out to your community and to your elders, and to definitely National Compadres Network and everything they got going on. And it's a blessing, and I appreciate you all so much.
I appreciate that. I want to remind our listeners, if you enjoy the podcast, share it with your community, share it with your friends. We have 218 episodes the last time I checked. That's a lot of different healing stories. I mean, right there. And even at the beginning of 2026, Maestro Jerry did a special episode where he shared about instilling that hope in our community and remembering our own sacredness. Remember, relatives, you have to invoke your own sacredness. You really do. It's not so much that if you want people to treat you sacred, you have to be that way. You know what I mean? And allow people grace to grow. It's not always about who's right, who's wrong. But I really appreciate that. Please go to wherever you listen to your podcast, be it Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, wherever that is. Please, write a review. It really helps us out in many different ways. And if you want to send us an email, go to hgp@compadresnetwork.org. That's hgp@compadresnetwork.org. And I also want to thank Noemi. She's our filling in for our new producer, kind of replacing Michelle's role here. And now that she's kind of a host, and it's important that we cannot do this alone. It takes a team. So I appreciate everyone involved. Emilio, who edits our podcast and puts things together for us. I really appreciate that so much. And I want to remind the relatives, think of those 4 domains of healing. The physical, do you feel safe? Do you have a place to chill out? Even if it's just your little area, remind yourself, when you're really struggling, it's like, do I need to be in a different place? How can I make this place better? Even your physical body, maybe you need to stretch or do something physical. And then there's that emotional need. Sometimes we all get overwhelmed by emotion, by stress, not sure what we're going to do financially. Everyone deals with that in life, and it's really important when you're feeling emotional stress to take that time to really reflect on changing things you can. And you can't control everything. Sometimes you have to just hand it over, and do what you got to do. And then there's also that mental health, Sometimes if you're young, mental health starts to show up. And I know in a lot of our cultures, mental health is not looked at as a true problem in our lives and our communities, but it is. We have to normalize healing. We have to normalize taking care of ourselves, in many different ways. And don't forget about that spiritual healing. What fills your cup? What helps you kind of fight these battles, because I believe we're warriors here in a lot of different ways, men and women, our children, and, all our relatives. We're warriors. And if we want to be good, strong warriors, we have to look within ourselves and, invoke that strength. So I just want to say those words of encouragement to each and every one of you. I think it's important. And remember, again, if you really, want to reach out, National Compadres Network.org, you can always find my information there as well, Michelle's. Please go read about our work, all the different things that we're doing. We do stuff with the young women, young men, a lot of trainings around the country, all over. From New York, all over, all the way back to California. So I just want to say that much, and we're going to call it an episode today. It was a good one. First one of 2026. I want to say palabra.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.